Chapter 788. Zhu Yonk is uncomfortable. Zhang Yi said to Zhou Ke, "This is Zhu Yonk, who was sent by the higher-ups to go on a mission with me. Please entertain her." Zhou Ke's eyes flashed with a strange light. "Another mission? Where are you going? Is it far?" Zhang Yi took off his heavy clothes and said, "Keep it secret. This is a confidential mission. I can't take too many people with me." Zhou Ke greeted Zhu Yonk politely. "What would you like to drink? Coffee or tea?" Zhu Yonk bit her lip. "Thank you. I'll just drink boiled water." Zhou Ke went to pour water for Zhu Yonk and chatted with Zhang Yi. "Do you need us to help you prepare anything? If the journey is long, take me with you. It's more convenient to have a doctor around." Zhang Yi was lying on the sofa, thinking in his heart. "Don't worry, I have other things to deal with here." While the two were talking, Yang Xia and Zhou Haimei heard the voice and came out. Seeing them, Zhu Yonk shouted in surprise, "Are you Yang Xia and Zhou Haimei?" Yang Xia and Zhou Haimei were both famous stars before the end of the world, so of course she recognized them. After the two learned about Zhu Yonk's identity, they also greeted her politely. Zhu Yonk began to feel a little strange about Zhang Yi. She hinted and found out that Yang Xia and Zhou Ke were both people around Zhang Yi. This made her a little unhappy. Although in her world, there are always many women around capable men. But in her heart, Zhang Yi is already her prey. How can she be unfaithful? For a while, she began to feel depressed again. One after another, other people in the family were also called out. Yang Xia's face began to become uneasy. In addition to Zhou Ke and the other two, there are actually several young and beautiful girls in this family. In terms of appearance, Yang Xinxin is no less than Zhou Ke and Yang Xia, and the key is that she is only 18 years old, young and lively. Lu Karen and Liang Yu were also very beautiful, but the key point was that they both had a very special temperament, the temperament of independent women who were not just vases. There were so many beautiful women, and Zhu Yonk began to feel a little irritated. "Ahem, Mr. Zhang, when are we leaving? I don't know if I should say this or not. This is a confidential mission, so it's best not to bring people who are not related to the mission." Zhang Yi looked at Zhu Yonk deeply. After a few seconds of silence, he said to Yang Xia, "Arrange a room for Miss Zhu to rest." Zhu Yonk naturally heard that Zhang Yi had something to talk to someone around him and didn't want her, an outsider, to be around. She stood up proudly and went with Yang Xia. After a while, Yang Xia came back and said with a smile, she likes the room that was arranged for her very much. After that, she sat next to Zhang Yi and asked, "Zhang Yi, who is she? Is she a powerful alien from a certain investigation team?" At first, the people in the shelter were a little in awe of Zhu Yonk. They thought that those who were sent by Zhu Zheng to carry out the mission with Zhang Yi must be masters with extraordinary abilities. Zhang Yi said calmly, "She is just a relative of Zhu Zheng. He should let me take her to brush up her resume so that she can be promoted in the future." Yang Xinxin's eyes were full of amusement. She tilted her head to look at Zhang Yi's profile, "But why do I feel that her attitude towards you is a little strange?" Zhang Yi sneered, crossed his arms and said, "After all, she is the child of a big leader's family, so she is used to being arrogant." Yang Xinxin smiled strangely. She exchanged glances with Zhou Ke and others and then said, "Brother Zhang Yi, you don't understand women. I think she seems to be targeting you." Zhang Yi was stunned for a moment, smiled bitterly, and pointed to his nose. "Targeting me?" Zhou Ke nodded. "I felt it too. She seemed a little uncomfortable when she saw us. I saw jealousy in her eyes." Zhang Yi couldn't help but say, "There's nothing I can do. It seems that my brother's charm is still too strong. She fell in love with me as soon as we met, right?" He said with a smile because he felt it was a bit outrageous. Zhu Yonk started to find fault with him the first time he saw him, which was obviously not a good impression. "Perhaps Zhu Zheng wants her to marry you?" Yang Xinxin saw the essence of the matter. "Brother, you are now the target of all parties' scramble to win you over. In Blizzard City, all forces are showing goodwill to you. The Deng family has provided you with technical means and specially trained your friends. It's not surprising that Zhu Zheng wants to use marriage to win you over. After Yang Xinshin said this, Zhang Yi also realized that something was wrong. However, he smiled nonchalantly. This old Zhu is really confused. Zhang Yi was not interested in the arrogant young lady at all. However, he could consider taming such a proud woman. It's a pity that Zhu Yang's personality really doesn't suit his appetite. He is a sophisticated egoist, a man who is a man of lust and desire. Feelings can be used as a regulator of life, but they should not be everything. Even Zhou Ke, if it were not for her identity as a doctor, she would not have become a member of Zhang Yi's side. Don't worry about her. After the mission is over, there will be no more intersections between her and me. He understood Zhu Zheng's thoughts, but Zhu Zheng could not force him to marry Zhu Yang. After all, the initiative was in Zhang Yi's hands. Zhou Ke held Zhang Yi's hand with some worry. That's what I said, but aren't you going to go far away on this mission? As the saying goes, love grows over time. Who can guarantee that you won't accidentally shoot? Zhang Yi smiled and put his hand on the back of her hand and patted it. Don't worry, I won't eat a bite of poisonous food no matter how delicious it is. If it was just a woman given for free, he wouldn't mind having some beautiful exchanges. However, Zhu Yang had Zhu Zheng standing behind her. Being involved with her meant endless troubles, and Zhang Yi would not be stupid. Uncle Yu asked with concern, Zhang Yi, is this mission risky? Zhang Yi did not explain the specific content of the mission to everyone, so everyone understood that Zhang Yi would not bring too many people. Zhang Yi smiled and said, it's hard to say. It shouldn't be too dangerous, but in this world, nothing can be predicted. But you don't have to worry about me. I still have the ability to protect myself. He thought that even if the ship was wrecked at sea, he could survive with his ability. You just stay at home as usual. Chapter 789 Preparations for Going to Sea, Ad 4, 1/2. This time, Zhang Yi only planned to take Zhou Ke with him. Because of the long period of several months, it is inevitable that someone will get sick on the ship, and it is very important to have a ship doctor. After explaining the affairs at home, Zhang Yi contacted Qin Jingguan and asked him to help him prepare the icebreaker and the sea. Send me the most experienced sailors with ocean-going experience. Qin Jingguan received the task and naturally did not dare to have any opinions. He hurried to arrange it for Zhang Yi. Because the task was urgent, Zhang Yi went to Chiyu Port that afternoon to check the ships and personnel. According to Zhang Yi's request, Chiyu Port provided the most advanced icebreaker Jinfeng. The port is naturally equipped with warships, but this mission is relatively confidential, so the warships were directly ignored. Zhang Yi stepped onto this huge icebreaker. Jinfeng, with a total length of 106 meters, is fully loaded with 16,000 tons and can carry 2,000 tons of fuel. After the advent of the Ice Age, it is undoubtedly the best choice for ocean voyages. Qin Jingguan equipped Zhang Yi with the most experienced sailors. Among them were Lao Tian, who had previously driven the boat for Zhang Yi, and the other 12 sailors. Each of them had more than 7 years of sailing experience, and they were all veteran sailors who had engaged in ocean voyages. Zhang Yi gathered everyone together and explained to them the importance of this operation. We're going to see this time to go to a distant place to pick up a group of overseas Chinese to return home. This is my first ocean voyage, and I need you all to cooperate with me along the way. He raised a finger. The most important thing is that everyone should keep their mouths shut. Don't communicate with the outside world, and don't talk to the overseas Chinese after we pick them up. You can call me Captain or Mr. Zhang. Don't reveal my name. Remember all of this? Zhang Yi said sternly. All the sailors hurriedly responded loudly, yes. Zhang Yi nodded and told Qin Jingguan to confiscate all their weapons. Then Zhang Yi would distribute them to them uniformly. In addition, Zhang Yi asked Qin Jingguan about adding weapons to the icebreaker. Qin Jingguan replied, in that case, the hull will have to be modified. It may take some time. The icebreaker did not leave room for shipborne guns. Zhang Yi sighed. If it really doesn't work, I can only try a retro trick and put land artillery on board. He thought carefully and decided not to use warships in order not to attract the attention of other forces. But if there are no weapons to defend, if there is really trouble, Zhang Yi can only rely on himself to deal with it. that will easily expose his identity. After thinking it over, he decided to use land artillery on board when the war really came. He prepared a lot of mines to deal with submarines. This thing may not be used against submarines, but it is more likely to deal with the mutated giant marine life that may appear underwater. Chen Jingguan prepared the boat and basic living supplies that day. The next morning, Zhang Yi took Zhu Yonk and Zhou Ke to Chiyu Harbor. Zhu Yonk didn't seem to expect Zhou Ke to go with them. She found Zhang Yi privately and expressed her opinion. Zhang Yi, I'm not a fussy person. It's just that this mission is very important. You have to bring your girlfriend with you. Isn't that a bit inappropriate? Zhang Yi raised his eyebrows and said lightly, Ke is a doctor. What do you think will happen without a doctor during a long sea voyage? Without a doctor, a small cold may kill people. Zhu Yonk insisted. Isn't there any other doctor? The sailors on the ship are all men. It's enough for you to bring me a beautiful woman. Isn't it a bit inappropriate to bring another one? Zhang Yi looked at her jokingly and smiled playfully. It's okay, I only brought a beautiful woman. Zhu Yonk was stunned for a moment, then realized that Zhang Yi said she was not as pretty as Zhou Ke. She stamped her feet in anger. Please take this mission seriously. Zhang Yi frowned and used a stern tone to her for the first time. Miss Zhu, please remember that I am the person in charge of this mission. You are just accompanying me, so don't interfere with my decision. Let me be clear. If it weren't for Zhu Shuai's face, I wouldn't bother to take you with me. So when you talk to me in the future, you'd better put yourself in the right position. Do you understand? If you continue to make trouble, I will send you back directly. As soon as Zhang Yi got angry, Zhu Yonk immediately wilted. He is a man who has experienced mountains of corpses and seas of blood. When he got angry, the murderous aura on his body was enough to scare this young lady who had never experienced anything in life. She was so timid that she couldn't even say a complete sentence. Zhang Yi didn't even look at her and turned to look for Zhou Ke, but after he left, Zhu Yonk turned her head and looked in the direction he left, and her eyes began to become a little strange. From childhood to adulthood, no man had dared to yell at her. She suddenly felt that Zhang Yi was very manly, and she was a little moved. Zhang Yi came to Zhou Ke's room, where she was sorting out her clothes and personal items. She packed more than a dozen suitcases full of things, but she didn't mind the trouble. Anyway, with Zhang Yi's space, it was not a problem no matter how many things she had. Zhang Yi leaned against the door, watching her bending over to pack her things. Her beautiful figure and perfect curves still made his heart beat. Zhang Yi crossed his arms and said lightly, It is very hard to travel far away at sea. This time it will take at least 2 or 3 months. The sea is windy and rough, and it will definitely not be as comfortable as home. Have you thought about it? Zhou Ke stood up after hearing this, stretched her body, revealing her fair and slender waist. She looked at Zhang Yi with a smile. Of course. After all, if I didn't have this opportunity, it would be rare for me to be in the same world with you. She walked over, hugged Zhang Yi's arm with a smile, and pressed tightly against his body. I have to be able to help you. Besides, she showed a cunning smile on her face, her peach blossom eyes full of mischief. You said that the voyage will take 2 or 3 months. If I'm not around, you will be very uncomfortable, right? Humph, I won't give that woman a chance. Zhu Zheng sent Zhu Yonk to follow Zhang Yi, and the purpose was obvious, hoping that something would happen between Zhang Yi and Zhu Yonk. However, everyone knew that in the end times when the situation was unclear, it was best not to stand on the side of a certain force. But if there were no other women on the ship during the months-long voyage, who could guarantee that Zhang Yi could resist the temptation? Zhang Yi asked himself, and he didn't dare to guarantee it. He sighed and hugged Zhou Ke's graceful body. You are still thoughtful. Don't worry, let alone anything else. Even if you encounter danger at sea, I can guarantee your safety. With the ability of flying in the air and space shuttle, even if a shipwreck occurred, he would have no problem taking Zhou Ke to escape. Before setting off, he had studied all the islands and reefs on the route. Chapter 790. Mines. Despite Zhu Yonk's objection, Zhang Yi took Zhou Ke out to sea. As for the others, especially the women in the family, they complained about it, especially Yang Xinxin, who looked at Zhang Yi eagerly, with a pitiful look. Obviously, she also wanted to go out with Zhang Yi. Lu Kuran also suggested that he could go on board as a mechanic to help repair. But these requests were flatly rejected by Zhang Yi. This is not an outing, but an extremely important mission. Even he couldn't say whether there would be danger in the sea. If something really happened, he couldn't protect so many people at sea. However, the people in the shelter still sent them to Chayu Port. From the port, they took a snowmobile for another 10 kilometers to reach the place where the fleet was anchored. The sea here is deeper and has not been completely frozen. The Jinfeng icebreaker has been pulled out by Qinjingguan, and the deck is full of sailors ready to go. Zhang Yi said goodbye to his family one by one and told them to pay attention to safety when he was away and not to be careless. If there is any danger, contact him and Zhu Zheng first. After explaining the chores, he took Zhou Kuer and Zhu Yonk on board. Zhang Yi and Zhou Kuer were relaxed and didn't bring anything with them because they were all placed in the alien space. But Zhu Yonk didn't have this treatment. When she came, she tried to reduce unnecessary carry-ons, but she still had 2 huge suitcases to carry. Zhang Yi didn't plan to help, but Uncle Yi was kind enough to help her load the car. After arriving at the harbor, there were naturally sailors to help carry it on board. After boarding the deck, Zhu Yonk took out the communicator in front of Zhang Yi and said to the other ends, "Uncle, we are on board. We can set off today." Zhang Yi laughed in his heart. Zhu Yonk did this deliberately to demonstrate to him. Tell him that Zhu Zheng is standing behind him. Zhang Yi didn't care and signaled Lao Tian to start the boat. The crew returned to their respective posts, and Lao Tian skillfully directed the anchor. The huge icebreaker moved slowly, crushed the thin ice around it, and then began to head towards the ocean. Zhang Yi took Zhou Qir to their room. Inside the cabin, the boiler was always burning, and the heating was very sufficient. This was Zhang Yi's request. Although it was a long voyage, he would not force the quality of life too much. At least the heating and food must be satisfactory. These were also very simple for him. Whether it was the fuel used for heating or the food, there was enough stored in the alien space. Of course, it was from Zhu Zheng. Working for the unit, how could I pay for it myself? In the following days, it was a monotonous voyage. Lao Tian and the others had many years of sailing experience, especially after the end of the world. They had also followed Wei Dinghai on a voyage. So they knew in their hearts which seas were dangerous. Before setting off, Zhang Yi told them that there was no need to rush, and they must take the safest route. First of all, they had to avoid the route with pirates, and then they could not approach the sea around Neon because there were a lot of Ronin there who were actually part-time pirates and road bandits. Secondly, they had to consider the sea areas where sea beasts appeared. Anyway, they have no shortage of food and energy, so there is no need to worry about sailing for a long time at sea. Just proceed with safety as the first principle. Lao Tian and the others are naturally very happy. They are surrounded by one of the top aliens in the Jiangnan region, and they are also aliens of a space system. Going out to sea with Zhang Yi makes them feel very at ease and proud. Even if they have children in the future, they can brag to them that they have been on a mission with Zhang Yi. In the first half of the month, there were no major problems in the voyage. After all, the sea areas they passed through were all within the territorial waters of Huaxi State, and they only needed to say hello to the patrol navy of the East China Sea region. However, since leaving the territorial waters of Huaxi State, troubles have gradually increased. On the 17th day of the voyage, the Jinfeng needed to pass through the territorial waters of Neon. Lao Tian came to find Zhang Yi and asked if he should contact the other side's maritime management department to avoid misunderstandings. Zhang Yi was reading a book. Hearing this, he closed the book, on which was the title of the book 1Q84 in regular script. No need, just go straight over. We'll talk if we meet someone blocking the way. Zhang Yi had his considerations for doing this. After the end of the world, the population of countries around the world has dropped sharply, and the military and defense forces have also been severely damaged. Even Huaxi country cannot fully control the surrounding waters. This also means that the ocean is gradually becoming a disorderly place. Neon itself is divided into two major forces, and the Navy is probably not stable. Neon's maritime self-defense force does not have too many defensive forces such as ships, so there is no need to pay attention to it. If you take the initiative to contact, it will easily arouse the other party's suspicion. If there is a problem, let Zhu Jing talk to the other party. Lao Tian got Zhang Yi's order and left. A few hours later, they received a warning from the Japanese Maritime Self-Defense Force. Zhang Yi asked Lao Tian to explain to the other party that they were civilian ships, not warships, and they were going to rescue people when they passed through the Japanese waters. In addition, Zhu Jing was contacted and asked to communicate with them. Although the people on the Japanese side were somewhat dissatisfied, they were not able to fully control the sea area at present, so they could only let Zhang Yi and his team pass. After solving the problem here, Zhang Yi continued to read his book in the room. But unexpectedly, when they just left the Japanese waters, violent explosions suddenly sounded around them. The hull began to shake slightly, which scared Zhou Qi. Zhang Yi's eyes tightened, and he reached out and patted Zhou Qi on the shoulder. "Don't worry, I'm here. I'll go over and see what's going on." He flashed and appeared in the command room of the icebreaker. Lao Tian and the sailors all took out their weapons, staring at the radar signal on the screen with anger and cursing. Zhang Yi noticed that many small reds appeared on the radar. "What's going on?" When everyone saw Zhang Yi, they immediately had a backbone. "Mr. Zhang, this area has been mined. We must have encountered pirates." Lao Tian smoked his pipe with a gloomy look. "It must be the damn Japanese. They sent us out and informed the surrounding pirates of the news." Zhang Yi raised a playful sneer at the corner of his mouth. "How is the hull?" "No big deal. Our ship is very strong. But these mines are just obstacles, and the surrounding pirate ships are approaching us." Lao Tian pointed to the dozen or so approaching red dots on the radar. Zhang Yi said lightly, "You control the ship here. I will deal with the outside things." After he said that, he disappeared on the spot. The sailors knew that Zhang Yi went to deal with the enemy, but they didn't want to be idle. Half of the sailors went on the deck with guns. Chapter 791 Neon Pirates. Zhang Yi came to the deck. As Lao Tian said, there were more than a dozen small boats approaching the Jinfeng at a high speed. There were 3 or 4 people on each boat, holding guns and rocket launchers. Zhang Yi leaned against the railing. Several pirates over there found Zhang Yi and immediately started shouting. Through the translation system, Zhang Yi heard clearly that they were shouting, "Stop the boat, don't resist, you can be spared." But the Japanese accent still made people feel a little physically uncomfortable. There is no doubt that these are pirates who colluded with the Japanese sea management. Judging from their proficiency, this is definitely not the first time they have done this. As long as there are civilian ships passing through the Japanese waters, they will be immediately surrounded by them. A cruel smile appeared at the corner of Zhang Yi's mouth. He flipped his hand and took out a rocket launcher from the alien space. But after thinking for a second, he gave up using this thing to sink the little Japanese ship. Zhang Yi changed to his horizontal sword. "Hey, you guy, did you hear that? Are you scared to the point of peeing your pants? Stop the boat and give up resistance." A little neon wearing a velvet straw hat and with a scar on his face shouted wildly, holding the AK in his hand high and aiming at Zhang Yi. Zhang Yi jumped up lightly. His body became very light, and the toes of his feet suddenly touched the railing. Then he jumped down from the ship's hull, which was more than 10 meters high, towards the neon speedboat on the sea. The black void force was attached to the blade, and only this kind of the hardest metal in the world could withstand such a terrifying force. Zhang Yi's grasp of the power of space at this time was far better than before. The little neons on the speedboat could react. A knife fell in the air, turning into a ray of knife light. Kacha! The speedboat broke into 2 pieces in the middle, and the cut was as smooth as a mirror. Puff! The broken hull sank directly into the icy sea, and the little neons on the boat screamed in fear. Falling into the sea water of this temperature will definitely kill you. And before dying, you can experience the feeling of your body being frozen into ice. After Zhang Yi cut off a speedboat, his body quickly disappeared in midair, and the next moment he appeared above another one. With another simple and unpretentious knife, he also cut the speedboat into 2 pieces. Repeating the same trick, in a short moment, 3 speedboats were sunk. The little neons on the boat fell into the water, wailing in panic, begging their companions to come and save them. But before other pirates came to rescue them, their bodies were gradually frozen stiff in the sea, their skin turned purple, and they looked as scary as zombies. This way of dying is particularly creepy, and so is Zhang Yi's purpose. It would be too easy for them to blow them up directly. This group of beasts, I don't know how many innocent people they have killed in this sea area. Alien. He is an alien. The pirates finally found something wrong. They had provoked a tough guy this time. But they were cruel by nature and didn't care. They were determined to kill Zhang Yi. All kinds of weapons were fired at Zhang Yi, including AK bullets and rocket launchers. However, they could not catch Zhang Yi's movements at all, as he flashed in the air like a ghost. This group of stupid guys even sank their companions' ships. Even if some bullets could catch Zhang Yi's position by chance, they were all absorbed by the alien space. Zhang Yi killed them one by one like a dragonfly skimming the water. He only sank the ships, not directly ending the lives of the neon pirates. He wanted to let them fall into the icy sea and experience the despair of freezing to death before they died. The sailors rushed up at this time, and surprisingly, Zhu Yonk also came to the deck to watch the situation. Then they saw Zhang Yi's easy way of killing. More than a dozen ships were sunk by Zhang Yi with great ease. They could even hear the desperate wailing of the little neon as it sank into the icy sea. Save me, save me. But this wailing did not last long before it was completely swallowed up by the blue, icy sea. The sailors on the deck smiled at each other, while some touched their heads helplessly. They didn't even have time to fire a single shot, and in the end, all of them were taken care of by Zhang Yi. This is the benefit of having a big shot in the team. Zhu Yonk looked at Zhang Yi's figure. The cold sea breeze blew her hair under her velvet hat, making her eyes look a little strange. In fact, it's not bad to find a man who can protect yourself. Although he is a little lacking in etiquette, he is barely a good candidate. Zhang Yi returned to the deck and said to everyone lightly, "Keep going. It is not surprising to encounter pirates, and perhaps someone will intercept them next. However, with Zhang Yi here, it is an absolute guarantee of safety." Zhang Yi didn't take this matter to heart. But after Zhu Yonk returned to the room, he reported the matter to Zhu Zheng in detail using the portable communicator.
I see.
Because we encountered pirates on the high seas. Pirates, so it is difficult to make use of this matter. With Zhang Yi here, you don't have to worry about safety. Zhu Zheng looked at Zhu Yonk with a serious face. It's just that. How did you complete the task I assigned to you? Zhu Yonk's face froze, and he said with some resentment he came with his girlfriend. Since he got on the ship, he even ate in his room. I didn't have any chance to contact him at all. The weather was too cold, and everyone tried to avoid appearing on the deck, and even ate in a comfortable place. Zhang Yi prepared his own meals, and didn't go to the mess hall with Lao Tian and others. But Zhu Yonk didn't have such a good treatment. He ate the same canned and pre-prepared dishes as the crew. Zhu Zheng heard this and said seriously, think of more ways. You can't let me teach you this kind of thing, right? You have to learn to do something by your own ability. Zhu Yonk pouted and said, the overall environment is not good now. In the past. Zhu Zheng interrupted her. Why is it that wherever you go, the overall environment is not good? You are the one who destroys the overall environment. Don't always act like a lady. Be more proactive. Zhu Yonk agreed hesitantly, but she felt a little aggrieved. She turned on her phone and looked at her face left and right. How am I worse than Zhou Kuo? Why doesn't he come to please me? Zhu Yonk didn't understand. She just looked a little worse than Zhou Kuo. Her figure was not as good as hers, and her temper was a little worse than hers. Apart from these, how could she be inferior to Zhou Kuo? The Jin Feng left the sea area. A few hours later, a ship sailed nearby and found the frozen bodies. Physics is amazing. After being frozen into ice, the bodies will float on the water.
When?
The people on the boat saw the bodies. They were shocked to find that the bodies were intact. In other words, they were not killed by firearms, but fell into the water and drowned. But what exactly should be done to make a group of pirates who are good at water freeze to death in the ice sea? And where did those speedboats go? It seems that there are very powerful aliens on that ship. On the bow, the leader of a pirate organization said cautiously, "It's a ship from Huashu country. Their people rarely leave the southeast waters, but this time they are traveling on the ocean. It's very strange," the person next to him said. "This matter is very strange, but we can't do anything about it. The gap between our strength and that of Huashu country is too big. You can tell this news to the Colombian troops. They will definitely be interested in this news." After discussing, several pirates did not dare to chase the Jinfeng, but chose to return to Neon Island and then pass the news to the Colombian troops stationed on Ropefly Island. Chapter 792, Colombia Ocean Fleet. Neon, Ropefly Island. Since the last century, the Colombian Oceanic Force has been stationed here, with a total of 50,000 troops. Although the number is not too large, in the current situation of modern warfare, this force, relying on the advanced battleships in their hands, has always been in existence that no one dares to ignore in the ocean region. After the advent of the Ice Age, the entire Neon archipelago fell into a serious ice panic. The lower-class people lacked food and clothing, and most of them died of starvation and freezing. However, the Colombian Oceanic Force has always enjoyed a good life. Because according to the agreement between Neon and Colombia, the life supply of the ocean-going forces must be guaranteed. So it's ridiculous to say. The civilian death rate on Ropefly Island is as high as 90%, but few people in the ocean-going forces died of hunger and cold. Even the canned food they abandoned fed many locals. This scene is very similar to a century ago. Due to the advent of the Ice Age, the ocean-going forces and Colombia on the other side of the ocean had inconvenient transportation, which made the ocean-going forces a local warlord. The relationship between the ocean fleet and the Colombian high-level officials is ambiguous. Although they obey the command of the Colombian high-level officials on the surface, they have great autonomy in the ocean area. The commander of the Colombian Ocean Fleet, 5-star Admiral Douglas, has also become a local emperor. On this day, the Communications Department of the Ocean Fleet received a call from the Neon Maritime Department, informing them of the discovery of the Huashu icebreaker heading to the southeastern waters. This news naturally attracted the attention of the Ocean Fleet. As their strongest opponent in the ocean area, all ocean actions of the Huashu Kingdom after the end of the world will attract their attention. So the news was reported layer by layer and reached the level of Colonel Carl Rosen, commander of the 50th Task Force. After seeing the intelligence, Carl Rosen attached great importance to this issue. After the Ice Age, all countries are in a difficult survival situation. It is already very difficult to maintain the basic operation of their homeland, and at this time, why are there civilian ships from Huashu going out to sea? How do they solve the problem of supplies along the way? Lieutenant Trundle, a staff member, stepped forward and said, "Should we intercept them? Investigate carefully." Carl Rosen frowned and fell into thought. In the high seas, if the civilian ships of Huashu are intercepted rashly, it will definitely cause huge controversy. At present, the ocean-going forces are independent of overseas, and the global situation is very delicate. They are also unwilling to have conflicts with Huashu. Otherwise, if a fight really breaks out, Huashu's West Wind Love Death can easily destroy their aircraft carrier battle group. Carl Rosen carefully checked the intelligence in his hand. Information about the Jinfeng can be easily found. After all, it is one of the most advanced icebreakers in the world, and various materials are recorded in detail. Private ship, before the end of the world, it belonged to a couple who loved to travel around the world. After the end of the world, it fell into the hands of an armed organization in Tianhai City. Civilian ships cannot carry a large number of weapons. Carl Rosen thought for a long time and finally made a decision. Don't pay attention to it. It's just a civilian ship. It won't have any impact on us. But you have to monitor its position along the way and report to me immediately if you find any abnormal situation. Yes, Colonel. Trundle took the order and asked the reconnaissance department to pay attention to the movement of this ship. In fact, even if they really boarded the ship for inspection at this time, they couldn't find any problems. The biggest secret of Zhang Yi's mission this time is someone on Yenlu Island. It's the things in his mind that are valuable. So on the way here, Zhang Yi was prepared to be intercepted and interrogated. With the support of Huashu country, he was not worried that the various regions and countries along the way would really tear their faces. Except for pirates, but Zhang Yi was not afraid of encountering those miscellaneous troops. Trundle took the order and went to the reconnaissance department, which was responsible for the radar station and satellite monitoring of the entire naval base. They can receive signals from most of the ocean here. Trundle found the head of the reconnaissance department and gave him the task of monitoring the movement of the Jinfeng. The person in charge, Major Hylison, said confidently, "Don't worry, as long as they are still sailing in this sea area, they can't escape our sight." Trundle said, "Unless they use military-grade shielding equipment, but that also means that they are not civilian ships, but ships carrying out special missions for Huashu country." Both of them showed meaningful smiles on their faces. In that case, the development of things has changed again. While talking, Trundle saw a pile of A4 papers next to him, with dense symbols and English written on them. Is there still so much news like this recently? He picked up a piece of paper, which read, "We have been trapped in Marley for half a year. Please send warships to protect us quickly. Otherwise, we will be made into bacon by the pirates here sooner or later. For God's sake, please save us." The signature was Jackman Brick, the president of the ocean region of Edison Shipping. Hylison said disapprovingly, "These rich guys, it's the end of the world, and they are so able to survive. But it's funny that they actually wanted us to rescue them. I can't figure out now, how did someone with such a brain climb to such a high position?" After the end of the world, ocean voyages became extremely difficult. If they were not powerful, they simply couldn't afford it. First of all, they needed strong enough ships to deal with the ubiquitous pirates and sea monsters in the depths of the ocean. Secondly, the difficulty in transporting fuel also made the Navy not to easily dispatch ships. After the end of the world, hundreds of thousands of Colombian citizens living in the ocean area applied to them for rescue. And the naval commander Douglas only gave one answer: let them pray to God, instead of the Navy. After solving the pirate problem, Zhang Yi and his ship continued to move towards the distant Yenlu Island. It was not until they entered the high seas that Zhang Yi realized more clearly why Zhu Jing insisted on letting him carry out this mission. Long-term voyages on the sea are both boring and dangerous. Only with a captain who can carry a large amount of supplies and fight can a civilian ship reach the South China Sea Islands 3,700 kilometers away. However, the initial contact with Neon was only a prelude. The Jinfeng sailed for another 7 days. In order to avoid the dangerous deep-sea area, Lao Tian kept moving along the edge of the land. On this day, they came to the territorial waters of a country called Nantua. Shortly after entering the sea, they were surrounded by hundreds of large and small ships. This video ends here. I am working on the next one. Please subscribe if not already. It motivates me to post more videos. Thanks.